Thank you. Nice to know that all my
We'll be sharing, right?
Yes.
So fine without the microphone? Yeah. Okay, thanks so much.
Oh, Sarah's not okay. Okay. I know. Yeah, also, all right, hi everyone, and welcome to the final round of the 2017 Taylor's Gender Open. Congratulations to both teams making it to finals. On government, we have Team KK in some kind of permutation. And on opposition, we have the team from Taylor's University. My name is Entei. Judging with me today, on my right is Luke, on my left where everyone is clustered. Chanel, Patrick, Fahan, Ellie, and Shone. All right, so before we begin, just a quick note that this is an enclosed room and we don't have microphones for the speakers. So if all members of the audience could switch their phones to silent and keep their cheerings, booings, and whisperings to a minimum until after each speaker is done speaking, I would greatly appreciate it. Also, if you have to leave the room, please do it in between speeches to minimize disruption, not only for the speakers, but for the judges. All right, so without any further ado, I'd like to invite the Prime Minister to give a speech not exceeding 7 minutes. Here.
How dare the speaker before me say love wins when the very thing they deny is the sexuality that gave them love. Every win in the movement on side proposition is not a victory for a gay community. Every person in that world that has a sexuality that is different will look at that movement and feel ashamed because their identity is isolated from the fact you want housing policies and you want adoption rights. I think the speaker before me, in their attempt to prove that we must be inclusive, failed to recognize that inclusion privileges those that are in power. Your heterosexual standards of achieving victory. I think our opposition will be quite clear. Our fight will be longer. It will be harder. But it's a fight that will be more meaningful because I don't think winning more policies equates to a happy, meaningful life. Because you will have houses, you will have children, but in those houses you will be sad, in those houses you will not be gay. I'm going to do two things. First, I'm going to talk about the alternatives. Because according to them, you can express it on Tinder and gay bars. How dare you simplify your sexuality to Tinders and gay bars? You cannot express yourself if it's not on the streets. The reason why Canal is changed to Anal and the C is removed in Amsterdam is because that whole area is for them. Because their whole lives they've been oppressed. You cannot go on Tinder and swipe your oppression away. I don't understand why they simplified it as such. But the second thing they say was, we have alternatives, but they don't. God damn it, the whole world is family friendly. If you want to be a heteronormative gay person, you have alternatives. But if you are a liberated homosexual individual that is pro their sexuality, there is literally no other alternative than the campaign that gives you. So I don't think that was true. But the second thing they said is they wouldn't shame individual prominent figures because that's their own capacity. Great, then you lose them. All those people that are prominent drag culture individuals, people who don't opt into heterosexual norms, that empower individuals to join movement, give gay children a reason to wake up every single day. You lose them. You lose their money, you lose their support, you lose their critical mass. You gay conservatives. But what's the point of conservatives? Their power always lies with them. They decide what policies pass, what doesn't. When you become a bit not too heterosexual, heteronormative, you want to express some flamboyancy, maybe wear eyeliner. That's the point when they say your policies will get revoked. I think the power that you give to people to decide policies means that it's reversible and not inclusionary. But lastly, they say we cannot antagonize people. We must antagonize people. We cannot let the world get away with deciding that we must appease conservatives. Because the world in which you appease them, you make them more powerful. You give me more and more reasons to believe in heteronormativity because it is the standard. If we oppose conservatives, we make it harder. Because if you're going to be a bigot, you're going to be a bigot against a loud and proud gay conservative community, a gay community that will support each other, that will stand for individuals. I think this is a world in which antagonization is wanted. We didn't get to the civil rights movement by saying, hello white people, please stand by me because I am right next to you. I am not white. If I did everything in my power, I couldn't be white. With sweet in my head, the best gay person on side proposition will still be a shitty cis male. Before I got my application, go for it.
Actually, how we got voting rights for the blacks is by comparing them to the common humanity that you have as people. And that's how you got suffrage.
I'm so sorry. The common humanity you refer to is one that is void of sexuality. Literally, the thing that you've been oppressing individuals for is the fact that they want to have sex with other individuals. You are literally removing the common humanity of it. You're making them exclude of their identity to make them acceptable. What kind of acceptance do you have? First, the principle. I want to suggest in this debate that the campaign for pride has to and must represent sexual glorification. Because you know, familial structures and the idea of a house and a white picket fence was made to oppress gay individuals. Literally went to the closet because they could not identify with this identity. As a result of it, they hurt themselves. You don't have to want to commit suicide to feel every day as if you're dying. These individuals went to the closet because of this. If you represent this version and not the glorified version that allowed to explore their identity, you are literally sending people back to the closet. And then at that point, you no longer represent minority individual positions. You represent a greater community that does not include them. So I think in principle, you have an obligation to this community to represent the thing that oppressed them, not the oppressors that did. But the second thing I'm going to talk to you about this debate is about the fight. Because I want to say three things about the fight. The first thing I want to say is the type of discussions you get. Because there's actually no explanation of what the policies they got in their words. Because just because you get more policies doesn't equate to good, meaningful policies. Because I want to know that the policies they get will be heavily heteronormatively washed. That's a thing. Because I'm going to suggest that things like, for example, having individuals speak about their sexual spectrum, policies that delineate with the individual person like rape being classified as not just vaginal penetration, won't exist in their world because it's a taboo. It's something you don't speak about as a result of it. So I wouldn't say that their policies will be more, but it will be you don't need blood before they can get housing and adoption rights. You don't get that side proposition. I think the conclusion to this argument is twofold. One, that we get more meaningful policies in the long run when we collectivize a union that is most powerful, hetero, non-binary. The other one, the non-binary individuals on our side. And second, we get more meaningful discussions because we don't concede to conservatives. Because it's a cycle. Once you become like us, you have to become more and more like us to get more right. So you have to become more like a straight man. Do things that are expected to do, adopt a man and wife standard of living. So in your world, people are more and more unlike themselves. And I think at that point, when you achieve full equality on side proposition, it will look just like a straight world. At that point, I really don't understand what the point of defending a gay person is, because he no longer can look in the mirror and recognize himself.
Great. I think the leader of opposition for that speech and call from the Deputy Prime Minister. Here.
We think it's heinous that you reduce LGBT individuals to the expression of sex, just that they are only sexual beings. They are only able to love when they have sex. We think and we believe that the expression of love, and the reason why you can use love wins, is because love is more than just your sexual expressions. So your ability to feel comfortable with your couple going into the streets, the ability to integrate with wider community, whom you hold dear, because they are your mothers, your fathers, your friends. Your ability to interact with other individuals is contingent upon individuals accepting you, liking it or not. That is why we were virulent with regards to getting that acceptance in the contrarian movement. Having said that, we have now evolved to an idea where we want to get a different approach. An approach that allows the wider society, individuals who we cannot change using the contrarian approach, by getting them and co-opting the very values they hold dear. Our side literally co-opts the family values that was in before the rejection of the LGBT identity. What is our response? I'm going to talk about two things. First, we'll talk about the purpose of Pride and what it should serve for the individuals we have at the moment. Second, I'm going to talk about conservative countries and individuals on the ground. Before that, few exchange rebuttals. Primarily, this idea that doing this will set a taboo on sex in itself, and hence other discussions that are important and pertinent to LGBT community becomes drowned out. Like there is no relation whatsoever to the removal of a hypersexual pride to removing any sort of discussion about LGBT, HIV rates within LGBT communities. Why is that the case? It's because it's a health issue. It is something that has been discussed even before gay marriage or the acceptance of LGBT has been a thing. This is something that is in discussion and can be co-opted as a healthcare issue, and not necessarily something individually under pride. But the second response is that this policy that we do does not drown out the ability for individuals to be sexual if they feel like it. When POI, by opposition, Sarah answered, there's a difference between individual expressions of sexuality, of sex, and one that is supposed to represent the entire community. That is the Pride campaign. In that, when she said that, it means individuals can do it, not cannot. So when the leader of opposition said that somehow we're against that, it is untrue. The reason why it's okay for individuals to do so is because it is within their spheres and within their area, their ability, and not one that makes up the entirety of the LGBT community, which Pride claims to be. That is a distinction that's extremely important, where people on the ground accept. Secondly, this idea that conservatives get weak as they go on and on again because of the louder voice from Pride. Look, like I would wish that was the case. But the thing is, outside this liberal bubble we call the debating community, the conservative society is extremely large. There's a louder voice. There might be the loudest voice in the Pride parade, but on the ballot box, the voice of conservatives is what resonates the most among individuals who voted for Trump, who voted against gay marriage in many states. That is extremely important, and they can't just ignore this and make it a very myopic debate. What is the purpose of Pride? We think, as the rightly pointed out, that family has been used by conservatives for ages to oppress gay individuals. That doesn't have to be the case. The thing is, individuals who are LGBT can be involved in families. You choose your own families, you have families, but the most important thing is, as a person who's growing up, discovering their own sexuality, in most cases, their closest point of contact and interaction is their family members. And the ability to have that discussion with their family members, even if it's not about coming out, but about prying into their parents' minds to whether they'll be okay with the idea of homosexuality, comes to the discussion by LGBT. What happens currently in their world? In their world, any sort of discussion with regards to LGBT is branded hypersexual. This is some sort of taboo in a parent-child relationship. No one ever discusses actual sex with their parents. It's just, well, people call it rape. But the thing is, because of that, people don't get the discussion about homosexuality. It's always branded as just one-dimensional. That is the problem. What we would tell you, though, as a picturesque movement that allows for that family values, where you have pride parades, not with chicks as codes, but rather two men holding hand of a child that's adopted. That is a vision that we think is better suited for individuals, children to feel more comfortable discussing about it, where parents are more likely to be able to discuss it in not just households, but schools. Extremely important. Before we move on to this,
the family-friendly institution tells you that your love is only legitimate if a boy loves a girl. Tell me how a vulnerable gay boy living in a conservative Bible Belt will be able to access his version of sexuality.
All right. One, like obviously this doesn't apply to every single conservative individual, but for the ones in the border, this discussion can take place. Secondly, the only reason why your idea of a family-friendly love is one between a boy and a girl is because it has been rejected by the LGBT community. One that we cannot co-opt. In revamping that image, like how we had second wave feminism with feminism speak, that ability is what we can, that empowerment is what we can gain through this policy. But it goes further than that. As a conservative, like, we cannot remove or ignore the individuals from the LGBT community who are most oppressed. These are specifically conservative LGBT individuals who cannot reconcile their religious identity, which is pertinent to their LGBT identity, which is also pertinent. In most cases, people usually reconcile this by saying that the Bible talks about family, the importance of love in family. They use this as a way in which to justify being homosexual, or as Sarah pointed out, abstaining from sex is a way in which to reconcile both identities. In most cases, their world rejects the ability for these people to fully reconcile these differences. Why are these individuals most important? Because as a person living in a conservative country, you are open to more discrimination, more avenues of being written off on a job, not being able to join a particular party. All that because of your identity. The thing is, they want to talk about a world where individuals can go on the streets and express themselves sexually and freely. That exists maybe in some states in America and some countries in Europe. But for the realities of most countries, it means getting rejected from a job, not getting economic empowerment. So they can talk about meaningful policies all they want, but for people who literally cannot work, cannot make a living, cannot even settle like their income so that they can actually adopt, these individuals can never gain what is most important to them in the beginning. That is fulfilling their identity within their private space. Because that is when you are true. That's when you're to yourself, you're not limited by other people. The developing nations has used the concept that LGBT equals sex as an ammo to take down things like sexuality, things like pride campaigns in other developing countries. It has been taken down because the subconscious assumption is that LGBT has to be about being hypersexual. That this has to change right now. Panel, pride as it is, sexualizes every discussion we have about LGBT. Discussion that every parent and child, every student and teacher must have in order to propagate an acceptance to the LGBT identity. Thank you very much.
Great. I thank the Deputy Prime Minister for that speaking call from the Deputy Leader of Opposition. Here.
As an LGBTQIA person, your sexual identity is a river that flows through every second of every day. It is in your veins, it is in everything you do. Government side would have these people live in fear and paranoia, always wondering if I'm family friendly enough, if I'm too sexual for my own family. We think that it's a miserable life to live, even if you own a house, or even if you are married to someone of the same gender. I will first deal with the speaker before moving on to two clashes on how. Like, will you be more accepted if you are more family friendly? And secondly, how like these policies won't actually be helpful on their side. But first, let's discuss this case about how Razak says that the removal of sex in pride doesn't equate to the removal of discussions of sex. But we don't think you get your benefits on your side if you say that, right? Because this is exactly what you will avoid most. Every time you start to talk about anal sex, if you start to talk about HIV/AIDS, that's when you would be less family friendly, because literally this is the reason why people make fun of you, and this is literally the reason why people actively feel disgusted by homosexuality, right? If they say that they want to be more family friendly, then they can't say that discussions of sex is okay, right? But the second thing is that even if they have discussions of sex on their side, we really watered down. It wouldn't be specific to the needs of gay people. So, like, for example, the STDs that are prevalent within the gay communities are different from these STDs that are prevalent in heteronormative communities. This means that whatever discussions they have aren't sensitive to the needs of the people you're actually dealing with, and we don't think there are policy changes that are specific to the needs of these particular people. Instead, they have blanket policies that would help like many poor people, but don't help specific poverty that comes with the wage gap of people who are actually gay. But the second thing is that they say is that this whole importance of family discussions. The first thing I will say is that if your family doesn't agree with who you are and your identity, literally doesn't want you to be with another man, then you shouldn't be having discussions with that family is toxic for you. But the second thing is that even if you really love your family and you want to have family discussions about other things, each of those discussions will be restricted. Each of those discussions will be you holding back what you genuinely feel and what you genuinely feel is important, right? You end up having families who impose heteronormative ideals and standards onto their families, that they will force their children to wear things that are more heteronormative or more family friendly. They constantly slut shame and victim blame their children, and you would be okay with that. You would just change in order to fit those heteronormative stereotypes. I would have to speak more like a man in order to get more speaker scores. It's the same thing, right? We think that you're fully more and more to your heteronormative stereotypes. We don't think that's a good thing. The next thing that they want to pigeonhole it to, that Raza wanted to do it, was this Christian gay person, how the Christian gay person will be more harm, right? We think that, first of all, who says that these Christian people who are LGBTQ don't want to be sexual? It's them who are the most oppressed and the most suppressed, right? It's them that even saying the word sex is harmful. Imagine saying homosexual sex. These are the people who need more identifiers, more people to speak up against them. If they see more RuPauls, they feel like if she's brave enough to wear a dress, at least I can confess to the man that I love. We think that that's important, right? The problem with them is that you can't be sexual and Christian. Meaning that you must always divorce your identities from each other. We think it's time that people can coalesce these identities. We must fight for it. We tell you, and I want to speak specifically, we told you that fight is important. If you hold no resistance to oppression, that is when you accept oppression. We think that insofar as people tell you to be something, you must actively fight against it, because otherwise you will keep on continuing to that, right? But here's the last one that I will explain to you that came to the crux of their case. They said that the more family friendly you are, the more acceptance you will gain. And all the outcomes on interactions, income, and policy changes are contingent on this premise. If I can explain to you why this premise is not true or actively debilitates the movement, we win this case. But here's the first thing, right? We don't think that more acceptance is a prima facie good thing, because it's more acceptance of something you are not and less acceptance of who you truly are. Your house will not be a home even if you get that house. Before I explain to you why you'll end up shamefully meeting your lover in secret locations, or shamefully looking at your Tinder profile, or never being able to kiss your lover in public while every straight couple out there kisses each other in front of you, sure.
Okay, our burden is not to say that you should change your entire lifestyle or change every single discussion that you ever have. It is that in the single most prominent display of the LGBT community, you should not be doing something that can potentially alienate other people in your community.
Yeah, no, they're going to get your benefits, right? So it's even worse actually, if every time your prominent Pride Parade members will say, hey, we're actually really heteronormative, look at us doing all these family-friendly things, and in the covers, all secretly, all these things are happening that are more homonormative. This is just where there'll be more discrimination against them, right? You'll say, oh, you're actually hiding it. You're actually really gay inside, right? Yeah, that's more inside. Plus, if they say that RuPaul, if they will condemn RuPaul, then all the narratives that RuPaul is explaining counteract with yours, therefore canceling out each other, which is weird. But here's where we tell you that acceptance isn't a true burden of acceptance, right? This means that every microaggression that you experience, You cannot speak out. Because the moment you speak out, that's you being less family friendly. Every time you see someone else who, the more intersectional flamboyant, naturally flamboyant gay person having less income, you can't speak out. You can't speak out against discrimination because you want to be more family friendly. The last thing to say is that the more controversial you are, the better. You should dress loud and proud because every single time you do that, one other gay person is going to step out of the closet because you were brave enough to do so. People literally wish, and gay people literally wish that they could have the bravery that RuPaul has, the bravery that a lot of these, like Laverne Cox have. But if they can see Laverne Cox out there, maybe they'll take one step ahead. Maybe they'll actually make a Tinder account that to find someone that they love. Maybe they'll actually confess to their lovers. The government side has to prove how allowing people, the oppressors to dangle your rights in front of you, to reverse it every time you become less family friendly and more flamboyant. That's the world that they think is okay. We think that you must fight this. That every time that you step out and the pride parade actively represents who you truly are and the identity that you cannot divorce yourself from, that's where more people will be brave enough to step out.
Great. I think we definitely wrap up the show for that. Sweden called on a government whip.
I think it's time that we call out side opposition. Let us recognize that the most disadvantaged group in this debate are individuals who say, I am more than a sexual creature. I want to be seen as a person that can love and a person that wants a family. All this time, the Pride Parade has fought for individuals who want to be proud of their sexuality. It is time for the movement to move on and start including people that say, I am more than just a sexual creature. I am an individual that wants to be a father, a mother, a person that wants to love another individual rather than just being forced to be proud of my sexuality by people in a liberal bubble that say that the only aspect of being an LGBT individual that I should be proud of is my sexuality and my sex. It is more than that, and it's time we move beyond that. So, first issue we want to discuss in this debate is who best protects LGBT identity. Let us recognize that in this debate, there are broadly speaking two groups of individuals. There is the group that they want to focus on a lot. These are individuals that are proud of sex and want society to acknowledge their right to be proud of their sex. Let's acknowledge also that this group has had their rights fought for all these years. Pride is not something that is new. It's been going on for very long, and it's fought for the rights of individuals to be accepted. We are not saying that progress is bad. We're saying that progress is good, and yes, there is a battle to be fought in that avenue, but it's time also to recognize other elements, other identities within the movement that have been suppressed because of the focus on sex. This brings us to the second group. No, thank you. Individuals who honestly say, my identity as an LGBT individual is not just about sex. Number one, religious individuals who actually say, I do want to divorce my identity from being an LGBT individual. Recognize, you know what they are saying? They are saying that if you want to be LGBT, you cannot divorce it. You must be proud of being Christian and also be proud of being gay because I know what's best for you, apparently. How about individuals who say, no, I want to keep it separate because I simply cannot be forced to reconcile both those identities. What about them? Your movement has not fought for them. It's time to make it more inclusive and say, we accept you too. Yes.
In both worlds, there will be a stereotype. In yours, you will stereotype them to be heteronormative. In ours, they will be stereotyped to be sexual. Can you tell me why that would liberate more individuals to explore different nuances of their sexuality that they get defined?
Because secondly, another group of people, not just religious individuals, is a vast majority of LGBT individuals who see sex as private. Just think about your own experiences as an individual. There are some people who want sex to be something that's outwardly displayed and be proud of it outwardly in public. But a lot of individuals, and this has been forsaken for so long, see sex as something that's private. It is not just the bastion of heterosexual people to say that sex is something personal to me and I don't want to be paraded around in public. A lot of LGBT individuals want that as well, and to say that you don't want it is to be the bigots that you claim to fight. These are individuals who want to say, when I talk to my family, I don't want to talk to them about sex. I want to say, accept my partner, accept the love I had for my partner. Because, and this is important,
In our side, once you have that acceptance of love and partnership, these are individuals who can have access to that sexual gratification and glorification and celebration because it happens in confines to something that's deeply personal to them. These are individuals who don't even feel comfortable celebrating that in public because it's not what they see as important. It's about them and their partner, and they want that to be cherished in society now and to gain that acceptance. No, thank you. The third group of people are just people who don't watch RuPaul. There are a lot of conservative Americans who just say, RuPaul is not my idol. She may be a very important figure, but she does not represent me entirely. Recognize that there are a lot of LGBT individuals, especially conservative ones, who have just been forsaken and forgotten. Because the main expression of identity is the pride parade that's forgotten them. No, thank you. So comparing this individual, drawing the comparative in this debate, on their side, they benefit in one group. This is the group that wants to be proud of their sex in public. This is important. We're not saying it isn't. No, thank you. On our side, we protect both groups because individuals who want to be proud of sex generally also want to have family, generally also want to take pride in being seen as family individuals and having love. These individuals are protected under our side, but we also protect people who have been forsaken for so long. The individuals who want to be seen as being more than the product of their sexuality, more than being the product of sex. So we protect both groups, even though we might lose some of the battle in terms of sex. We are okay with losing some ground and making up for ground that's been lost all this long. No, thank you. Let's move to the second issue, policy. Recognize that from the outset, they are okay losing some of those houses. They're okay with losing some of this acceptance of gay marriage. That is a thing that they have to accept, because bear in mind, they want to fight for outcomes that a limited subset of people in society want at the expense of outcomes that a lot of LGBT individuals want. Everyone wants a house. Everyone wants to be able to love their partner freely. But you will say no. Only the individuals who want to be proud of their sex can have that sort of access, can have that fight for them. No, thank you. Let's move on secondly to public health issues such as HIV. We would actually contest that Pride Parade has made it very difficult for individuals to get access to HIV treatment because we've always associated being gay with having sex. We have a word for it, it's called sodomy. And whenever the individuals look at Pride Parade, we teach them to associate the sex with things that are dirty, to use words like sodomy. This is horrible, it is. But when your Christian parent watches Pride Parade on TV, that's what they associate it with. And now, when it comes to public support for HIV, instead of saying this is a public health problem that affects all individuals, not just LGBT individuals, but even heteronormative individuals as well, now you make it something that's specifically tainted, something that's specifically seen as dirty. That's how you lose support for things such as HIV. We say that a lot of issues that affect LGBT individuals also overlap with other areas of society. Let's find the commonalities, because the commonalities are easy to fight for. Let's push forward those commonalities. Let's deal with the third idea, which is reversal of fortunes. The idea coming from them that after all, I need to start acting more white or more heteronormative, because if I inch away from it, my rights get taken away. This is not true, because usually, once progress has been made, it's very hard to retract it. I literally need to fight, have new policies, to get the support for new policies, to retract my rights. But second of all, once there's a general acceptance of LGBT individuals, it's very hard to persuade people to go back to being bigoted. For people to get acceptance of LGBT individuals, focus on what is common to them. Then they can see LGBT individuals not as creatures of sex, but creatures who want families and love something that I want too. Once that framing is in my mind, it is very hard for me to go back to being bigoted when I see that there's more to the story than I'm told. This debate has been a shame for one reason. It's because we live in our liberal bubble that says the only individuals out there that deserve to be fought for are individuals who are proud of sex. There are so many others out there, we've forgotten them all this long. Fight for them.
Great, I can take a minute to listen to that speech and call on the opposition here.
I think the thing that clothes us, shouldn't clothe us. That our body is the most powerful vessel that we have, and often it is the most interactive part of a person's identity. And as such, we shouldn't subsume to ourselves to an institution that has been archaic, been dismissive, and continuously tell us that we are sick. In Malaysia, transsexuals can't marry. They are treated as sick individuals. The moment they are locked in, there's no special area, they're often sexually abused in prison. These are the type of substantive things that this side will dismiss because they just don't fit into the common cookie-cut identity. This debate, unfortunately, cannot be given to side government because if you look back and you know, at no point of their speech they were able to explain that family-friendly strategic decision-making would allow this individual to be more accepted, would liberate this individual to some extent. They just made a big logical leap. They argue that there's this community that is a majority and this huge power and institution, but somehow this institution will suddenly change. And I will prove to you in my speech why this institution won't change and how even though they'll change based on their standards is far worse. But before that, let's look into several issues of this debate. Number one, principally, should these movements be centered around sexual glorification or not? Because we told you that a family institution is one that is structured to exclude them. I think the argument that is most powerful, if I have to characterize it, is that argue submission into the family institution gives us strategic access. I will tell you why it's unstrategic access. Because a lot of content on discussion will be watered down. Let's look into some example. Like the sexual education in some parts of America was highly prioritized on abstinence because society thought that this was just our common value and this was a legitimate value, right? That's correct. But the biggest harm the individual that are most harmed here are LGBTQIA individuals, where contraception is an essential part in them engaging in their sexuality. But the point I'm trying to make is that subsuming to a standard does not improve the standard. The standard becomes worse and becomes even more worse in your work. The reason why individuals should be allowed to take many different faces and faces they are familiar with, because the face like Neil Patrick Harris is the reason why individuals are said, wear a suit, look like him. You shouldn't be wearing a dress. You shouldn't be wearing what you feel. You are wrong. And these kind of characters and more powerful characters means that family-friendly characters means that other individual and more vulnerable individuals' preference gets silent. I agree that some individual I reject this premise that sexuality is not an essential part of their life. But even if it isn't, it is the most attacked part of your life. If their logic is that it's a private expression, then why the fuck God has a right to interfere in my bedroom? Why does you, a society that is not affected at all as my physical interactions with another man or my preferred partner, has the right to interfere in my private space? Given that it's the most attacked part of my identity, that's why I'm able to express it. Because my body is not a vessel only for me to express, but it's also a vessel for me to defend. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, sexual glorification, I've already told you how important is it to some individual and how it's more likely going to be diluted under their side. But before I move on any further, go.
All along, the Pride movement has fought for people who don't buy into the family institution. When are you going to start to fight for those who do buy into it? A lot of individuals who you have forsaken.
Because the individuals that bind with your family-friendly idea, they're quite privileged. They can talk to other people, they can make friends, they are more accepted by the individual. The people that wear dresses can't even enter a church because that's completely unacceptable. The individual that goes and kisses in a room, it's acceptable. But if you kiss in public, somehow it is not acceptable. This moral hypocrisy will continue and it will be justified by an intelligent man like you because if we submit to this kind of standard. That's why we need to stop it now. Like, I agree that family-friendly population is a majority. But the debate is about how will they swing and will they swing in the right direction. Now let's move on to discuss about them. Let's talk about outcomes. How will we affect conservatives? Like, I think the principal flag that opposition gave you is that your bigotry becomes more powerful when your bigotry is not confronted in the most public forum. That when individuals are confronted with absurd logic, you are just sick. These individuals are forced to be silent. These individuals I'm talking about LGBTQIA individuals, are forced to blame themselves and cannot be powerful. They feel like they're weird. They feel like, why am I dressed this way? Am I something wrong with me? And this is the kind of narrative that becomes more and more powerful the moment this bigotry becomes unchallenged. What do we do on our side? The Pride movement, I think they do one thing. They protect the most vulnerable. Because for many individuals that do not dress like that, they do not share the same problem. Like when the slut walks, they dress really provocatively. It is not about dressing sexily, but it's the stigma that is attached around wearing sexily when you walk alone down the street. That struggle can only be understood by a woman, and that pain can only be understood by a woman. It is for that kind of projection that brings value and that brings protection to this individual, right? Now, the next thing about this debate is about family value, and whether family values is a place or not. I think the opposition bench told you that a family institution is wrong as a whole. Subsuming means that we lose a lot of strategic alliance. But secondly, we aren't able to challenge the institution from inside. They were never able to show me how some things will change. They were never able to tell me how churches are more likely going to accept gay individuals. They didn't. What they weren't able to tell me is that when you want to have sex, go inside a room. When you want to kiss, go inside a room. But that standards will not apply if you are a woman. Sit down. Now, the next area of this debate is about what about other LGBTQIA individuals. I think this is where they lost the debate completely. Because I think the gay pride movement, they have come to a consensus that we need to protect the most silent, the most vulnerable members of society. I think you splinter them. The people that will join your movement will be forced to criticize against individuals that doesn't dress like them. I think when confronted with a question like RuPaul, even they couldn't come up with an answer. Can you imagine a world in which RuPaul has to criticize other gay individuals? Life would be far much more worse, right? I think in a lot of this, the reason why I'm running this argument is that the gay movement is only powerful when it's united, right? The next thing I will argue in this debate is that is sexuality important? It is the most important part of our life. It is a part of our identity that gives us happiness when it's interacted with another identity. It is a part of our life that gives us meaning and existence. Like we can be lonely, we can be single, but in the opportunity of having sex, the opportunity of building a life with another individual is premised on sex. It is the most visceral physical interaction that it can be manifested in equal happiness. And that happiness can only be manifested if it is shared with your preferred individual. The same pain that we accrue when we are forced to have sex with someone we don't want is the equivalent the equivalent benefit that you get with a person that we choose to have sex with. The point that I'm trying to make is this: that for far too long we have imprisoned our voice and have asked people to be quiet. And ladies and gentlemen, let's stop doing that now and let's protect the weakest among us.
Right. Thank the opposition group and call on the opposition reply. Before the opposition replies, just a quick reminder that again, the small room and the speakers and microphones, if you could keep comments and whispering during their speeches to a minimum, we would all really appreciate it. Thanks.
If you are a gay man and you wear a suit and you have a husband and you have a family, you will be invited to host the Grammys. That's a reality because you're the most privileged gay person. In fact, most people don't identify with you because you don't struggle the same way I do. You don't do the things I do. You don't know what it feels like to be raped and then victim blamed. Those people get protection right now because they are the conservative poster boy for what a gay person should be. The people that don't are the people who decide to wear dresses that have slits up to their thighs. The people who decide that their sexuality is important. I agree with the government. They're conservative gay people. I also agree that there are people who don't want to be stereotyped their sexuality. But those people have access. They have access every single day because they fit into our mold that we decided for everyone else. Those who don't are those people who are not sexually liberated. So the first thing I'm going to do in my reply is talk about representation. Because they said, what about the conservative person who's gay? The person who doesn't identify with being a sexual being but a lover. That person is a victim, I agree. But that person has more access to centers, to communities that will support them, that will say, we love you because apparently we should love the singer, not the sick. Those people get protected in status quo. Those who don't are the people who look to the pride parade and want to represent themselves because no one else wants to talk about dildos, about dominatrix, about the fact that their sexual liberty is being compromised every single day. Those people need representation. So it is true that there are many communities in some sense to trade off some with the other. I think up until this point, they haven't given me a reason why our heteronormative world should prioritize heteronormative gay individuals. But the second thing that representation was about was apparently acceptance. I think it's very important. If your acceptance comes with conservative people wanting you to be more heteronormative every single day, that acceptance is meaningless. I don't want that acceptance. I would rather gay individuals opt into communities that support them. Gay communities, gay centers, gay organizations as a result of the support they get. Because according to Aaron, it's hard to retract progress. It's hard to retract progress. The moment you don't look like a person I wanted to give rights to, it's very easy to convince individuals that this is not the gay person I supported. This person is a sinner. This person is sick. We should pull back those rights. Don't let them get away with saying once progress is given, it can be taken back. It was never in your hands to begin with. So I think acceptance is meaningless. What does our world look like? Because on a comparative, I say the fight is harder. But I want you to note at this point, whilst it's true they were not a strong voting bloc, whilst it's true they were not as powerful as conservatives, we make it harder to be bigots. Because in your world, they can victim blame. In your world, when things go wrong and your sexuality is on the front line, people keep quiet because it was never supposed to be a part of the discussion to begin with. And as in our world, when you're a conservative person and the person asks you, shouldn't you be wearing more clothes, you will say, fuck you, because that community supported that decision for you to do so. I think that's the most powerful tool in fighting oppression. And I really nuanced this in my leader opposition speech. The most violent, aggressive conservatives won't change. But everyone in the middle, they eventually sees this as an opportunity to give you some rights because you've been so viscerally calling out for it, they will. I think at that point, we get more nuanced policies. We don't get watered down discussions on healthcare. They will never include rape that's not vaginal and anal. We think these policies are better. Even if we don't get that house and we don't get that income, in your world, they will cry in that house. They will want to have sex, but the moment that child knocks on the door, they feel ashamed of themselves. I think at that point, a house and income comes from a ransom stage and you compromise individuals. I think that's why we think the policies are less meaningful on opposition, on government side. But to conclude this, if it's true that individuals have an obligation to be like the standards you set for them, you can't say they can do it in their private space, right? Because either they will feel really bad about themselves, feel like they're abandoning the gay community, or they will not be true to the front of your face. If no one represents what your pride parade looks like, we think that will be absolutely horrible. Can you imagine if the pride parade went down on boats in the middle of the canal, all dressed in suit and ties, shaking each other's hand, because that's corporate culture? That would be a community in which no gay person is represented. And sure as hell, everyone stares at the community and says, I can identify with myself. I sure as hell don't identify with this community.
Great. Actually, the opposition reply to that speech and call upon a government reply to close the debate. Here,
Side opposition wants to lock out anyone else that does not buy into their hyper-sexualized identity of what an LGBT community should look like. Note that the entire case of the importance of your identity and your ability to express the identity assumes that the identity is inherently a sexualized one, or the identity cannot exist without that element of sexuality. We argued a number of things. We argue that it is possible for people to not buy into that sexuality, the sexualized nature of it, while still having that sexuality. That it is possible, even if you do buy into that sexualized nature, for you to not premise your entire identity on it, that there is still something left in your identity. And that for you as an LGBT individual, that exists even when you are not hypersexualized in a public space. And then thirdly, that there are people that even if their identity revolves around that, then you can express that in places aside from pride. No response coming up from them. I think it is horrible that if they want to argue that people are diluting their identity by denying that sexualized part of it in one particular instance of pride, that they are willing to allow conservative people who are also part of the LGBT community to have to dilute their entire lives by denying that they can exist as an LGBT person while still rejecting a hypersexualized image of an LGBT person. They are the side that dilutes the identities of people within this community. And that is why we think that they cannot take this debate. Because the privileged person here in this world is the one that can wear those clothes in pride and in their daily lives. They are the people that do consider their existence to be premised on sex because they can experience and can access that sexual experience. What if you are the person that cannot even have sex before marriage, let alone have sex with someone of the same gender as you? What if you are the person that cannot ever wear those clothes at pride or otherwise because going out in public in those clothes is horrible, that your parents will disown you if you even own those articles of clothes in your that there are people who hear them, that they are being recognized in society, that they are not an invisible population of people whose very existence is a contradiction, such a big contradiction that even the religious people that deny you also agree with the LGBT people that also deny you because you apparently cannot exist in these two worlds at the same time. It is about time that even if Pride was started by the people that were the most vocal and were the most forward in terms of their expressions of their identity, that it has expanded to the people that could not partake in that first expression of pride, that could not partake in the battle so far, because they have been locked into an existence that has been meant that they are unable to help themselves and unable to access those particular lived experiences of the people that led the fight. If they want to talk about a disservice to people that led the fight, I think it is a greater disservice that those people want to lock up everyone else from the fight that they're trying to win. At the end of the day, they want to tell us about taboos that exist today, but no analysis about how just going against the taboo wall is going to deconstruct that taboo or suddenly make what I genuinely want as to own a house or to be able to tell my parents that I'm still part of your family, even if I identify in a certain way. They don't tell me how that taboo is deconstructed. They don't tell me how they make things better. We tell you how we change perceptions, that we appeal to common ground or common humanity. Then you denying this is you denying my human existence. And we think that that is when you are able to make yourself more acceptable to the majority of conservative people that are going to block your policies, to the majority of people that are going to discriminate against you in your daily lives, to your office workers that are going to judge you when you bring your +1 that's the same gender as you, and to your parents that are not willing to take you home if you ever tell them. That is why you put
Please, one more round of applause, please, for both